when we were like 16, I was told about this friend of mine named Velvert. Like velvet with an R in front of the T. That was really his name on his birth certificate, Velvert Turner. And he was claiming to know Jimi Hendrix. And nobody was believing him. And so I was at my friend Zeke Berman's house with a bunch of kids after school, or it was in the summer, I don't remember. But all I remember was the phone rang, and he got off and he went, oh man, this guy's coming over. His name's Velvet. He claims to know Jimi Hendrix. And he's literally out of his mind. You know, he's a screwy kid. And so everybody says, well, let's make him prove it, you know? Let's laugh at him. And I thought, well, that's not very nice. But the door opened when he got there, and I looked at him, and I have this talent, I guess it is, or grace. I took one look at him, and I said, yeah, he knows Jimi Hendrix. No question. 100%. I'm on his side. You clowns can laugh all you like. He knows Hendrix. I'd bet my life on it. So, well, they kept chiding him, and he said, oh, wait a minute, Jimmy's in town. He's got a concert tonight. So we went in the kitchen, and he called up the Warwick or wherever Jimmy was staying and asked for some name, not Hendrix, you know, because Jimmy wasn't under his own name. And the phone rang, and it rang, and it rang, and they were going, you didn't even ask for Hendrix, you're so full of it. And he said, you think Jimmy's under his own name, you know, so you could call him up? Of course not. And he said, does anybody remember the name I asked for? And they all went, no. And he said, you see? And they were passing the phone around listening to it ring, and when it got to me, Jimmy picked up. And I mean, I could tell his voice. We had woken him up, you know, at 3:30 p.m. He was still sleeping. So, and I heard him, he went, yeah, hey man, what's up? Who is this? In that inimitable voice of his, and I said, it's Velvet, Jimmy. And I handed the phone to, because what was I going to say? Oh, it's Richard Lloyd, Jimmy. I'm like, huh? Oh, yeah, man, cool. You know, where do I know you from? And so I said, it's Velvet, and I handed the phone to Velvet. Velvet went over and, you know, whispered, and everybody was grilling me. And then afterwards, he got off the phone and then, what'd he say? What'd he say? And I said, like, it's none of your business. But I'll tell you what he did say. He's playing tonight, and he invited me, and he said I could bring a guest. So we moved back in the living room, and everybody is like going, me, you know. Hey, I'm your best friend, you know, Zeke, you know. And I'm like sitting there, I'm not going to raise my hand. I met the guy. I just met the guy. I believe him, but what right do I have to raise my hand? All these other stinkers were laughing. Now they're raising their hands. We'll see. And he actually did a pirouette. He put his finger in his up, and he said, and I'm going to take you. And he pointed and looked right at me. And I went, okay. And so he said, listen, I'll meet you after. Let's go get dressed. You know, we'll meet at a subway stop, you know, and we'll go out. It was somewhere in Long Island. Jimmy got a place on 12th Street and gave Velvet guitar lessons. Now, I lived 3 blocks from there on Jane Street. So, and I was Velvet's best friend. So as soon as he left Jimmy's house, he would call me and say, oh, I just left Jimmy's house. Can I come over and, you know, show you this stuff and we can practice together? I mean, because we were best buddies. So he would come over within 15 minutes of having left Jimmy's house, and we would work on the stuff that Jimmy was teaching him. which was mostly based on his own songs, you know, but, you know, stuff like, you know, that. And, you know, it's hard to do on electric guitar, but and he taught us to listen to the beating. Like you would go. Until there was no beating, which of course kept your fingers, you know, had to hold it. And then he would, you know, would do weird stuff like, you know, learn a scale across like, and then you had to play it from here. And then 2 frets down. And the other thing, you know, was like build, you know, vibrato everything, you know. So we do a scale, you know. And all sorts of other, you know, stuff, mostly from his own songbook. Although one for a couple of months we were doing Mickey Baker Jazz Method, you know, which starts with major 7, major 6, major 7. Only he did it chromatically. Now I do it on a cycle of 4ths. So I'll go. That's how I teach it to my students, you know. The other thing is, you know, we would work with 2 fingers. We literally put rubber bands around these 2 and do like, you know, so you learn arpeggios like Django style, like. Minor. You know, stuff like that. You know, and the trills, yeah, etc., you know. So that's the kind of stuff we learned, and, you know, and I knew most of his songs via that approach, you know. In 68, 69, I learned a lot of his Hendrix songs. So after Velvet died in 2000, and Jimmy died, of course, in 1970. So after Velvet died, I thought, you know, I really have to do a record of some Hendrix songs as a tribute to my friendship. I mean, I got to know Jimmy. Jimmy knew that I was Velvet's best friend, and then he got to know me. And so I got to go into the studio and listen. They would let people in for the first hour while they listened to yesterday's stuff. So I got to go listen to a bunch of stuff in the studio, and then they would ask people politely to leave. And, you know, it was all very polite. And, you know, it wasn't a bunch of drugs. I mean, the man was, I mean, he was a genuine genius. I call him, I think he's an avatar.